Hello everyone, Game Professor here with some updates and announcements about Games is Lit 101. First up, we've got to talk a bit about why there has been a relative lack of content recently, and what's changing in my life right now that will heavily reflect on Games is Lit 101. Those of you who have been watching for a while may remember my Stanley Parable analysis, in which I jumped around from location to location and ultimately ended up here on this new set. Now the reason for that is because I accepted a full-time job and my wife and I moved to accommodate it. Now the job was a pretty good opportunity. It paid well, it paid off my student loans rather quickly, it's an excellent thing that we did and I'm glad that it happened, but well, those of you who have had a full-time job that doesn't relate to anything that you're interested in or passionate about will probably know what I'm talking about when I say that it was a rather intellectually and emotionally draining experience for me. The job was working with hydroelectric power plants, and, you know, as someone with a bachelor's in English and a web series about video games, you can imagine that's not exactly something that did much for me, aside from its financial benefits. And you can see the effect that that had over the course of the last 2 years or so of Games is Lit 101. After the Stanley Parable, the delays between episodes got longer. Hopefully the quality of episodes didn't drop, but who's to tell? It just left me kind of creatively and emotionally drained. When I first started the series, I could be playing a game, an idea would pop in my mind, I'd sit down, write an episode out in an hour, and that's basically what you'd get. That's how naturally this whole thing came to me. Now I need to force myself to sit down over the course of multiple hours, over multiple writing sessions to get something that I'm content with, let alone happy with. So it hasn't left me in the best place for the series, and that's why you haven't seen as much of me lately. Now, things are changing a little bit, and it's both good news and bad. Essentially, I was laid off from the job. I won't bore you with all the details, but I'm done doing this job. Now, that's obviously kind of a complicated thing for my wife and I, but I view it as an opportunity, because this is my chance to make Games is Lit 101 into the show that I believe it can be, and the show that I really think that all of you viewers who have stuck with me all this time deserve to have. So here are some of the changes you can expect to Games is Lit 101 in the coming months. In hopefully about a week or so, you're going to start seeing new videos come up on the channel, and these are going to be relatively simple ones. I have some addendums just of me talking about some of the thoughts and discussions that came up after releasing some of my literary analysis videos. BioShock, Shadow of the Colossus, there were a few that have some interesting talking points, and I'm going to address those in some, casual setting videos. You're also going to be getting a few countdown episodes and such. This is all easy stuff for me to be giving you guys while I'm working out all this unemployment stuff and getting re-immersed back into video games and the persona of the Game Professor and all that stuff. Now after that, by the end of the month at the latest, I'm getting right back into Games is Lit 101 with the Alan Wake analysis that's been incoming for a while now. And after that, back to the original schedule. Weekly episodes, one analysis per month is the plan. I have a lot of patron-requested analyses to catch up on and a lot of other games that I want to do, so we're going to be getting right back into it after that. Once I have that established, you're also going to be seeing some game reviews. I probably won't have the money to buy a lot of the games that I want to buy for the next little while, but what games I can afford, I will review. What other interesting games I'm playing, even if they're older or something, I'll review them, put my thoughts up on the web series. So you can expect to see that sometime soon as well. There are other possibilities for afterwards, but that's what's definitely happening for now. That's what you can expect to see in Games is Lit 101 over the next little while. Now this all does come with something of a catch, and I always hate this part, but this opportunity to turn Games is Lit 101 into a full-time gig requires that over the next few months, Games is Lit 101 actually becomes a financially sustainable job, essentially. Which means a lot more Patreon support than I have right now, or just income in general. So those of you who have been supporting Games is Lit 101 on Patreon, your generosity is always very much appreciated. I love you guys a whole lot. I've been able to connect with some of you in great ways. I've been playing Splatoon 2 with a few of you recently, and that's been great. The Discord server's been fun. I very much appreciate your generosity, and I hope that you will continue to find Games is Lit worthy of it in the coming months. Those of you who haven't pledged to Games is Lit 101 on Patreon, if there's ever been a time to consider that, it's now. Even if it's just $1, every little bit that can turn this into a viable job option for me helps, because if I can't make that work in the coming months, then I'm going to need to go back to some other form of employment, and Games is Lit 101 is going to return to something that I do in what time and mental energy I have instead of something that I really focus on. So it's a great opportunity, and I'm really hoping that it's going to work out well. That's going to be a necessity for it. So please consider that if you haven't already. The link is in the description, and I appreciate all of you regardless. Thank you. So, I do have a few more announcements, one of which does kind of relate to what I was just talking about. One of my early Patreon goals was to eliminate YouTube ads, and I'm going to need to be reworking the Patreon in a variety of ways anyway, but one of those things I'm considering is retconning that, and I know that that's kind of going back on my word and such, and so I want your guys' opinions, essentially, because YouTube doesn't give much income, but I can use whatever I can get in the situation we're in right now. So if that's something you're okay with, talk about it in the comments. If it's something you're not okay with, also talk about it in the comments. I want your feedback on that before I make a decision one way or the other. Now on to other announcements. Some of you might be familiar with the Gaming Symposium. It's a podcast with me and a couple other YouTubers, MC Prophet, Red Angel, and Chris Franklin, who does the Errant Signal series. Now, the idea of this podcast is essentially like a monthly book club. We each take turns choosing a game that we're going to play, and then next month we get together, discuss it, and announce the next game. It's been a whole lot of fun, but we've been on hiatus recently because of a variety of personal things going on with some of the cast. So we are getting back to that soon, and we're going to do the This War of Mine episode that MC Prophet chose coming up, but we're starting off with a Q&A episode. So if you have anything that you'd like to ask any of us or the symposium in general, anything you'd like us to talk about, then feel free to head to Twitter at Gaming Symposium and ask us questions, or email your questions to gamingsymposium@gmail.com, and we'll get all that working for you. That episode should be out in a few weeks, probably. And one more thing, this isn't exactly new, but I've never talked about it before on this channel. Right before I moved to this new set, I did an online video course for a website called Curious.com. It's like a subscription service for video-based online classes. And I did a course there on violence in video games. Not just, you know, the typical questions of like, do violent video games turn us into psychopaths or anything, but about the nature of violence in video games, the weight it tends to carry, the thematic purposes it tends to be used for, why it's so prevalent in games, just all sorts of stuff about the use of violence in games. And personally, I think it's some of my best work. I'm actually rather proud of what I did there. But it is exclusively on Curious.com. I'll include a link down in the description if you want to check that out. There's another course there too, but it's just an amalgamation of some of my more popular videos when I first signed on. So if that sounds interesting to you, then go ahead and head on to Curious.com, check that out. I'm considering doing more for them at some point because I do really like their format. You can put little quizzes in every now and again and include some optional assignments for people who want to go above and beyond. It's a really neat format, and also it can, depending on how you do it, be a fairly lucrative thing, which, you know, I need right now. So go ahead and check that out. If you like it, then, you know, talk about it there. I'd love for some of you to see that series. So that's it for these announcements. Please, by all means, comment with stuff that you'd like to see from the show in the next while, with what you think about the idea of putting ads on the videos again, all that sort of thing, because I'm needing to move forward with the series here in a pretty big way, and any of your input as to how you think that should look is definitely appreciated. Thank you all so much for turning Games is Lit 101 into the success it's been so far, and here's to a whole lot more of that. So, we'll be seeing you in about a week.